Nope, nope. Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Alan Singer.
Educated historian Dr. Alan Singer, our resident expert on Media Watch. Alan, you've got a nice lineup, hopefully, for us to parse the craziness that's been going on, that's still going on. Off the top of my head, and thanks for reminding me, another jazz legendary figure passed away, I believe, this past Monday. We're doing this the Wednesday before our Monday air. The day
June 17th.
Wednesday, June 17th. But on Monday, this is Wednesday, June 17th. I believe on Monday, Abdullah Ibrahim, the South African outstanding jazz pianist, who actually started out with a name calling himself Dollar Brand back in the day. And he made a name for himself as Dollar Brand and played with a whole bunch of greats. But then he converted to Islam, took the name Abdullah Ibrahim, and basically out of South Africa, formed his own group, of course. And one of his early members of one of his early groups was Hugh Masekela. And so he was a great progenitor for South African jazz musicians, and of course, a great jazz musician in his own right. And so I think he was like 90 or 91 when he passed away. And so, yeah, there's a good shot of him looking very content and relaxed on a couch somewhere. But his music was outstanding. And so we give him a great shout out, and may he rest in peace. And we thank him greatly for all the great music he gave us over the years.
It's also important. He was an anti-apartheid activist and recognized by Nelson Mandela and others. You know, there's arts, but artists are also citizens. And he was both an artist and a citizen.
I agree. Yep. Just like Masekela, those guys, they spoke out against that entire apartheid system. Mary Makeba, Hugh Masekela, Abdullah Ibrahim, they were not shy about calling racist apartheid what it was. And we've got some people like that across the globe in the jazz pantheon today that all the basic legendary folks would stand up and be counted, from Max Roach to Miles Davis to you name it. Even Sonny Rollins, who we talked about last time, they made no bones about recording what do we call it? Movement songs and message songs, Freedom Jazz Suite and the like. So, but as opposed to that kind of artistic, powerful statement, Alan, tell us about that other crazy, non-artistic statement that took place on our White House lawn that at least 63% of the viewing public, not necessarily our viewing public, but the entire country, was not in favor of, but happened anyway, which we really don't want to give much time to.
They built this enormous bubble-like arena on the White House lawn, the people's house, not the Trump's house. And Trump did this to celebrate his own birthday. And what they had was the UFC is one of these fights where you could do anything you want, kick and bite. And they did it on the White House lawn. And Michelle Goldberg, writing in the New York Times, said, "It's a garish spectacle of America's decline."
Perfect. Could have said it better.
It's reminiscent of the gladiator fightings. And, and all these guys are coming over and they're shaking Trump's hand. But one of the winners was completely offensive at the end and making fun of the Obamas. I mean, this was really gross.
Gross.
Yeah,
broadcast on
look who's running the show. Gross.
Gross.
Everything he does is gross.
You're talking about spectacles. When Nero was fiddling and Rome was burning, and they were wearing all these gladiator spectacles in Rome, that was when Rome was in deep decline. So, so if you're looking for a historic parallel, you got it right there. The dodo who wants every gold thing anywhere, any place, wherever he's living, and is trying to put gold all over our nation's capital, is also trying to give us spectacle. Blood and games, while he distracts from the Epstein file, distracts from a war of choice that's costing the country and the global economy, wreaking havoc on the country and the global economy. And now he's supposedly signing a memorandum of understanding where he's basically giving the Iranians everything they wanted, claiming that the straits are back open. And yes, no tariffs. Well, guess what? There wasn't any tariffs before you started your stupid ass war, idiot. So here we go, folks.
Not only that, they've made no agreement on the nuclear, on uranium, refined uranium. And he keeps saying this is a better deal than Obama had. Obama had a deal preventing the development of nuclear weapons. And he must think everybody is stupid.
Well, he thinks his people are. He thinks everybody is like his people who vote for him no matter what stupidity he does. And so he thinks the rest of the globe will believe his stupid lies. But speaking of stupid lies and canards, I don't know, Alan, you were talking about the fact that we're going to run down the litany of stuff where this guy has been assaulting the Constitution and democratic norms, starting with freedom of the press and insulting journalists. Let's just go with your litany, and we're going to basically, folks, tell you how bad this country is because of the man in the White House, and these are the examples. Go.
Well, Trump was being interviewed on NBC's Meet the Press by moderator Kristen Welker. And it's important, again, she's an African-American woman, because he just insults reporters. He insults women, but he seems to keep his sharpest insults for women journalists of color. The Atlantic, in their commentary on what he did, said it was a rare close-up portrait of a presidential meltdown. Welker asked him if he had any evidence to support his assertion that the primary vote in California was fraudulent. He kept on going. And he responded, they're crooked, just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked. Meet the Press is crooked. You're either crooked or you're stupid. And so is ABC and CBS and CNN. You're one-sided, crooked network. Then his face turned red as his tie, and he abruptly stormed off. Now, I'm not a medical practitioner of any kind, but that kind of aggressive screaming and anger is a sign of dementia. Because when you can't, someone with developing dementia can't think of the words, can't think of what they want to say, they grow frustrated and they start shouting out. And that's basically what the Atlantic was saying when they talked about meltdown.
Bob, what were you seeing about the fallout in the press? Because I saw a lot of headlines about how much press the Meet the Press meltdown was getting, and how journalists, professors, and school were saying Christian Welker was giving us a primer on how not to let politicians tell lies on your show, and by holding her ground. What did you see? You're mute. You're mute, Bob.
His reaction to her reaction to his walking out was the exact polar opposite. She kept things together. I mean, she continued to ask questions even as he got up. So it was that's kind of what we do here. We're focused on the subject. We're not we're not. If he were actually on our air, we wouldn't be screaming at him. We would be simply throwing facts at him. And so, I read in a number of journalism publications complimenting Kristen Welker for just holding her own, and not, other people might have been frustrated, like, please, Mr. President, please sit back down. No, she's like, I asked you a question, and and he's walking away. So it's it was a sad day because he of course he has a long litany of women he's insulted, including Yami Cinder, Abby Phillip, April Ryan, and on and on and on. He does this all the time.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, we praise Kristen Welker for holding her ground, and that's a great thing. But it's like closing the barn door after the horses escaped. They should. Why didn't the press do that in his first term of office? I still have a lot of energy about it. I'm still ashamed that the press spent 4 years making fun of this guy instead of doing their fucking job. And that's all I really have to say. Make an argument. Go ahead. Eric.
No question, Ray. Do you think? And I kind of thought that the first time around would be it. When when Biden beat him, I figured that was the last we'd ever see of him. And personally,
Look, I remember, Ray, that you're correct in that initially they did, but by the end of the first term, they were holding report cards. New York Times, Washington Post saying, these are the number of times Donald Trump has lied to the public. It took him 3.5 years to get around to
Why?
Look, because they thought they were playing the same game with a new green president as opposed to
nobody saw the Nazi the fucking first day he showed up.
They're still talking about we're playing by the same
my
rules.
language.
Well, guess what?
No, don't
we understood who he was because we called him a liar from the time he rolled down the escalator. Okay, and there were a couple of other not mainstream media organizations that said he's a liar, he's a charlatan. Anybody that would call an entire country of people rapists and not good people deserves to be called out. We called them out.
What
saying is
we did. It took the general press too damn long, as you said, 3.5 years before they really started to take a look at this guy and ask questions.
Okay, all right.
And there's a part of the press that rose because of Trump. We didn't have the OANs. We didn't have the Newsmax. We had Fox, but we didn't have Fox to this destructive level. All of those those are the true fake news outlets. Because if if they had facts, I would at least respect them for fighting with the facts, but they don't. And that's part of the problem. A lot of the public watches that instead of the truth.
Yeah, we were calling Fox fake news at the same time we were calling Trump a liar. Yeah. Everybody was calling Fox. They were pussyfooting around calling them a fake news propaganda outlet. They were. You're right about that, Ray. I'm not arguing that point, but I don't want to blanket paint the entire brush to the entire media because some people actually said this guy.
Some people actually did.
No, this guy's a charlatan. The problem that you keep trying to ignore is that almost 50% of this voting electorate in this country, how many millions of votes did this guy get? Not the first time. The second time, Alan, didn't he get more public vote the second time around?
The second time.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
So what you're looking at is that same divided country that actually likes some of that MAGA racist, white supremacist crap
misogynist
that this guy has been pushing. And that's why he got back in office the second time. It probably was stolen. I'm saying I don't have any proof. That's why I say it probably was. But I don't know if I sent you guys a tweet about Elon Musk working with some outfit out of the Middle East, United Arab Emirates, or one of those Middle Eastern country, using a software program to actually interfere with that Joe Biden election. And the guy who was in with them realized what it was all about and was blowing the whistle. So now he's basically hiding undercover. I should not have brought it up without finding the source that I had so I could name names, but remind me in the next show to have that handy so that people don't say, well, he's just making that up out of whole cloth.
I think part of the problem with the media is, I think, three things. One is they argued we have to be balanced. So no matter how outrageous Trump was, they felt they had to present him as if he was somehow normal. The second problem the media had was they saw themselves defending the office of the presidency. And instead of recognizing that Trump was destroying the office of the presidency, they left it alone. And then the third problem, they're scared. I mean, just in the last couple of years, I mean, what's his name? Elon Musk bought Twitter, which is one of the main sources that young people use to get the news, and turned it into a right-wing neo-Nazi pro-Trump rag. And then the Ellisons, through Paramount, bought CBS. They drove Stephen Colbert off the air. They have bastardized, mutilated 60 Minutes. They've changed CBS News. Now, Paramount now owns, what do you call it? Comedy
Discovery.
Central. Don't they own Comedy Central? And they're trying to take over Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers Discovery just got greenlit by the Department of Justice. They said we have no objections to that.
Right, that'll give them control over CNN. So what is happening is these wealthy pro-Trumpers are just buying up all the media that pose any criticism. This is
and just 2 days ago, Fox is bought Roku. So if you have a Roku TV or a Roku stick, you can look forward to more Fox content, I'm assuming. So now they're, so they've gotten a foot into the streaming market. Well, they had Tubi before. They picked that up. So yeah, they're digging into the streaming side of things, hedging their bets.
All right. So we're now talking about 1% oligarchs buying up media. Let's talk about the also 1% money that's been pumped into our elections because of Citizens United and the stuff that's been greenlit by the 6-3 current Supreme Court. So, Alan, part of that litany of how they are now co-opting the democratic process, I believe you had something dealing with the Super-PAC that's been funded to try to deal with the Federal Elections Committee. What's that?
Okay, well, first, everybody may not remember Citizens United, but basically in 2010, the Supreme Court ruled that corporations had the same freedom of speech as people. Though the Constitution gives these rights to people, the Supreme Court gave those rights to corporations. Then what the Supreme Court said was that to place limits on the ability of wealthy individuals and corporations to influence democratic elections, well, that was a violation of their freedom of speech. So, I read the Constitution and didn't see how money of billionaires was freedom of speech, but apparently a majority of the Supreme Court did. Well, what is happening now? In this 2026 midterm election, AI and cryptocurrency super PACs, which are giving money to promote campaigns but technically don't coordinate with candidates, have already spent $300 million to influence primaries. And the election is not till November. So who knows how much money these people are going to spend. Oh, by the way, Trump family is now heavily invested in crypto. And Trump says the United States is going to be the AI champion. And we're not going to regulate AI because we need it to flourish. So their money is well spent.
So the money is being pumped into these congressional races by AI cryptocurrency people who want to make sure they have Congress people representing their issue, not people, their issue, folks that will green light all the laws that will allow them to do all the nefarious stuff that they want to do legally. because they will have bought and paid for these congressional people. They're not the only super PACs that are out there trying to screw elections. Talk to us about what's going on with the people who are getting primaried, or anybody who is not in favor of Israeli annexing the West Bank, who's not supportive of Israeli genocidal actions in Gaza. They're getting primaried or getting a whole bunch of money by this pro-Israel super PAC that spent what, 28 million?
28 million. This is part of AIPAC. The AIPAC is the group that is the main lobbyist in the United States for Israel and should be forced to register as an agent of a foreign power, but never has. AIPAC was responsible, spent $15 million to oust a Republican congressional representative, Thomas Massey in Kentucky, because he raised questions about continued U.S. funding for Israel's military. In New York City, there are major primaries taking place right now. In Brooklyn, Dan Goldman, who's the heir to Levi Strauss and is a half billionaire, quarter bill, whatever. But he's been a major supporter of Israel. And he has been not wanting to criticize it. He wants to see things as complex. Well, he's being challenged by Brad Lander, former New York City controller. And Lander has made no bones about it. He says, I believe in the right of Israel to exist, but I do not accept what they're doing in Gaza and the West Bank. I know, Bob, you said you live in that district.
Yeah, I live in that district, so I've been trying to read the political the incoming political stuff. And when I saw the AIPAC on Dan Goldman's side, that set off a little alarm in my head because I mean he's and even though the mayor Zoran Mondame had won the Democratic primary, he didn't endorse him, and he couldn't bring himself to do that. And they asked him about that on TV just the other day on Channel 7, and he just sort of walked around the question.
He waffled on that one.
Yeah. So anyway, that's going to be an interesting election because the people don't do the type of research that we do, and incumbents have such the advantage. So this is going to be an interesting primary between Lander and Goldman.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about my Congress representation because Espaillat is an AIPAC guy as well, and I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about the fact that he doesn't seem to be caring too much about the black folks in his district, which is the former Charlie Rangel district, but they've redrawn them so it gets much more widely dispersed and whatever. But yeah. And that former Charlie Rangel district is the former Adam Clayton Powell Jr. district. Okay. So for the fact that he's basically ignoring his black constituents does not sit well with me at all. But to get back to the other part of the money in the federal government that's destroying our democracy, we roll it back around to the whole freedom of the press issue, because if only a handful of right-wing media moguls exist, then we don't really have a free press anymore, because Scott Pelley got fired. What's her name? The Hispanic correspondent in 60 Minutes.
Cecilia Vega.
Cecilia Vega got fired.
And Sharon Alfonsi.
Now, the interesting thing is, Richard Prince's journalisms had a link on their last public column that talked about what Cecilia Vega was working on when she got fired. And the story she was working on, guys, you remember when we did that UN rapporteur, the female who got censored by the Trump administration because she was going after the governments that were siding with the Israelis for annexing West Bank, letting settlers run amok all over the Palestinian property in the West Bank, letting them go crazy in Gaza, that UN rapporteur, Cecilia Vega, was profiling her. She was going to give her the 60-minute treatment about the battle she was fighting to see that Palestinian representation was taken care of properly. And do you think the Ellisons like that? Do you think Barry Weiss, the pro-Zionist, now chief editor at CBS, like that? I don't think so. So now I see why Cecilia Vega got that axe as early as she did, based on this new information. So I want to thank Richard Prince's journalism for bringing that to our attention, because I don't think it was, they didn't launch the story, they aggregated it, and if I could find the source that they got it from.
And while you do that, we have about a minute and a half left.
We're out of time that fast. Oh yeah, it was a New Republic story that they broke, and the author of the New Republic story, Malcolm Ferguson.
While they banned her because she exposed what was going on in the West Bank and in Gaza,
Was trying to, yeah.
Bezalel Smotrich, who oversees the West Bank settlements for Israel, the illegal settlements, was permitted to march in the Israel Day parade held in New York City. This is a man who has been banned in half a dozen countries, and there is actually a ICC, a warrant for his arrest, and he was permitted to march in a pro-Israel parade in Manhattan.
Is that an international court, Alan?
Yeah, International Criminal Court.
Yep.
As seeking warrants against him.
Yep. And we're about out of time. How much time
we have a little bit, about 40 seconds.
About 40 seconds. Well, when the ICC has a warrant out for your arrest, but the U.S. let you in without any problem. But I believe, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, France banned him and a bunch of other folk from entering their country. That's the status of this country. We'll do wrestling matches on the WHouse Lawn, but we'll let genocidal people come in anytime they want.
That's where we are.
This has been Media Watch, folks. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Alan Singer.
And I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube at Media Watch Media Watch EVT.
And we'll catch you the next time, folks. Stay safe.